Coming up on Network Africa, prosecutors in Kenya orders the arrest of opposition leader's sister Ruth Odinga as the country gets set for Thursday's rerun election. The Nigerian army comes under criticism for its alleged role in the recent just killings. And Egyptian authorities dispute the death toll from the militant attack that killed many police officers. Many thanks for joining us. Welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker. Well, let's begin the program with major stories that made headlines over the weekend. From the attack on policemen in Egypt to another bombing in Somalia and to Zimbabwe, the disappointment at the removal of President Mugabe as WHO's Goodwill Ambassador.
Hundreds of people gathered to mourn victims of a militant attack on security forces in Egypt's western desert. At least 16 people were killed by armed militants in a shootout during a raid on a suspected hideout. A statement from the Interior Minister said that a number of suspected militants were also killed as security forces combed the area. Egypt is facing an Islamic insurgency concentrated in the Sinai Peninsula from two main groups, including an Islamic State affiliate that has killed hundreds of security forces since 2013. On Sunday, at least 7 people were killed after a roadside bomb went off in an area outside the Somali capital, dominated by Islamic insurgents who had defied public protests to end years of violence. The Somali National Army said the victims, who were mostly women farmers, were in a minibus on their way to work. Just last week, a truck bomb in Mogadishu killed over 300 people, including many more, causing angry demonstrations across the capital. The World Health Organization on Sunday overturned its appointment of President Robert Mugabe as Goodwill Ambassador following an outrage among Western donors and right groups at his installation. The organization stripped Mr. Mugabe of the position just 5 days after appointing him. Critics had urged the organization to overturn the appointment, criticizing the president for destroying his country's economy and for numerous human rights abuses during his 37 years as a leader.
Well, Kenyan prosecutors say they will charge the sister of opposition leader Raila Odinga with incitement to violence and other crimes after attacks on staff of the election board last week. The Director of Public Prosecution, Keriat Court Tobiko, ordered the immediate arrest of Ruth Odinga, who is also a former Deputy Governor of Kisumu State. Raila Odinga had been due to compete against President Uhuru Kenyatta in a rerun presidential election this week, but pulled out earlier this month, saying the polls would not be free and fair. In the meantime, the first batch of ballot papers have arrived the country ahead of Thursday's rerun election. Officials from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commissions, IEBC, were at the main airport to receive the papers, the first of 3 shipments which will be dispatched to over 40,000 polling stations across the country. Although there is uncertainty whether Mr. Odinga will participate in the election and concerns that it may not proceed peacefully, the IEBC insists that the election will take place despite reports of attacks in its offices and some opposition strongholds. The volatile build-up to the October 26th vote has revived memories for Kenyans of ethnically charged violence that killed around 1,200 people after a disputed election in 2007, when Odinga also lost and disputed the results. In a call for peace, head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, has called for dialogue in Kenya, where political tension is rising ahead of the rerun of the cancelled presidential poll. Speaking during a prayer service in Italy, the Pope said he was paying close attention to the situation and praying that the whole country might be able to face the current difficulties in a climate of constructive dialogue, having at heart the search for the common good. According to data from the Vatican, almost a third of Kenya's population are Catholics. And last week, news broke that more than 30 civilians were killed in an attack by Fulani herdsmen in Plateau State, Nigeria. Witnesses accused the Nigerian army of disarming and then abandoning the victims ahead of the attack. Before the attack on October the 15th, soldiers from the 3rd Armored Division of the Nigerian Army reportedly arrested anyone in the village found with weapons and confiscated anything that could be used in self-defense. There were indications an attack was imminent, so the soldiers reportedly told villagers to spend the night in a classroom in the local primary school, saying that they would protect them. The survivors say that did not happen, as the soldiers withdrew and militiamen allegedly dressed in military form shot, mutilated 27 of the villagers who were sheltering in the classroom with machetes. It's not the first time the people of Jos have faced an attack this year. On September the 7th, the 16th anniversary of the 2001 Jos crisis, over 2,000 people were killed in religious violence. 19 members of the same family were killed, most of them women and children. This happened when Ncha village was attacked by a herd militia. On October the 8th, one person was killed and another wounded when Nke Dongboro village was targeted. And there have been more of such attacks this year. Well, human rights lawyer Chinwe Onoha joins us now to take a closer look at the situation. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
You know, Amnesty International essentially is of the opinion that the killings have worsened in Plateau State because the federal government has failed to bring perpetrators to book. Do you agree with them?
Well, I think the problem really is the governments are not doing enough to reduce and protect the women and children in this case. Normally, when there's an attack, the government should launch an impartial investigation, and when the perpetrators are being pointed out, or like in this case, the allegation is against the soldiers. The attacks took place in the course of the dusk to dawn curfew. Soldiers were meant to be on guard. Now, we don't know whether these soldiers were at their duty posts or not. I know the villagers are alleging that the attacks were actually being perpetrated by the soldiers. And in this case, we expect that the government should